Hello everyone! We recently went to one of our local orchid shows and decided to pick up some plants while we were there. There was so many interesting and new species brought by the vendors this edition that we went a little overboard and ended up with more orchids than we were expecting. Fortunately, they're all miniatures, so I don't expect this to make much difference in our space. Before we get started with showing you our new minis, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you are so inclined, leave us a tip through the SuperThanks option. First, we picked up some plants from what is quickly becoming one of our favorite local nurseries, Flora Henriques. They sent us the list of the available orchids beforehand, so we actually picked these 4 before the show. We asked them for the list because we saw on their Facebook page that they have the Bulbophyllum taiwanense in stock, and we had just lost ours last year. This is not an easy plant to find for sale, so we just jumped at the opportunity. I was surprised to see that the pseudobulbs seem much more spread out than in our previous plant, where they were almost on top of each other. Maybe that's why it ended up having rot issues. And I guess they weren't kidding when they said that these had just been potted. All I have to do now is tweeze the old sphagnum out as much as I can. We had our other taiwanense plant in small bark and sphagnum, but I've been keeping all my Bulbophyllums with a self-watering wick, and it has been working well, so I'll do the same thing for this one. All the other Bulbophyllums are in a DIY self-watering setup, but for this one, I have a proper self-watering pot that fits perfect. On their list, this nursery also had the Masdevallia minuta that we had years ago and then lost when we didn't appropriately care for it during the summer. This Masdevallia is not only adorably tiny and makes a ton of really cute flowers, but is one of the few Masdevallias that supposedly can take warm temperatures. So we are trying it again as our gateway into Masdevallias. The plant looks really nice, but it's in a really loose and chunky substrate, and that will absolutely not work for this species in our environment. And again, it's barely potted in the substrate, which is good for us. I see a lot of the roots aren't good, and the new ones are really fragile, so I'm not going to faff around with it too much. Last time we kept this species, we opted for the clay pot and pure sphagnum method, but now I don't have any small clay pots on hand. We have been experimenting a lot with self-watering setups, so I think I will put a wick in the pot, still use pure sphagnum, and maybe later we can exchange the plastic outer pot for a clay one, to help with humidity and maybe even lower the temperature a bit. I've been wanting to try my hand at growing a Dendrochillum. They make beautiful plants, a lot of them have that grassy look that I love, and they make these sprays of tiny flowers that Jay will love for his macro photography. This one has clearly flowered before, but we might have to wait until next winter to see the flowers. A lot of people here seem to grow Dendrochillum wenzelli, but that one was way more expensive for some reason, so when I saw this one that is smaller and has really thin grassy leaves, I opted for it instead. It also said online that it's really easy to grow, so that was another deciding factor. As you can see, another extraordinarily difficult unpot. This is another one of those orchids described as wanting moisture, but well draining, and I've ranted a lot about that description, so for now, it's staying in good old bark and sphagnum. Another genus I wanted to try is the Comparettia. I think that's how you say it. They look a lot like Oncidiums, but with huge rounded lips, and are very small plants in comparison. I mostly see orange hybrids of this genus for sale, but I really like the look of this pink species, and I also like that it seems to be more heat tolerant from what people say online. This is supposed to be a bit of a finicky genus to keep, but I still wanted to try. According to the seller, this plant has been divided recently, so I won't be disturbing it too much by repotting it right now. Everything I read implies that this plant likes loose substrate and drying out quickly, pretty much what people usually say about Tolumnias. I usually keep my Tolumnias in finer grade bark, but I don't have any right now, so I just picked the smaller pieces from the bark I had. I wonder if, like Tolumnias, it's also not exactly like that, and maybe it enjoys some moisture retention in the end, but for now I will use a very ventilated pot. I really didn't want to wait to repot this. I already don't like the way that some of the leaves look since I got it home. While at the show, we had to go to the booth of another Portuguese vendor we really like, called WinGarden. They have a lot of mounted species in miniatures, and this time was no exception. Jay immediately picked this one out for me. Not only are the pseudobulbs absolutely adorable and right up my alley, it was flowering at the time, and the little flower is just gorgeous. The tag calls it Dockrillia prenticei, but the internet shows records of a Dendrobium prenticei, a Dockrillia liconastrum, and I can't decide if this is a Dockrillia reclassified as a Dendrobium or if these are two separate species. For now I will just call it what it says on the tag, but orchid taxonomy is definitely a mess lately. This made researching its care even more complicated. But the little I can find is that this orchid requires to dry out in between waterings, and most people keep it mounted. I am trying to keep mounts to a minimum, so I'm planning to keep it in small bark in a shallow pot and see if that works out. I don't know if I broke it accidentally or if this was always two different plants in the mount. Unmounting it is relatively easy, except for the fact that the roots are laying sideways, making it harder to keep in the pot. I ended up having to fiddle with it a bit, and I used a bit of sphagnum to bring up moisture to the exposed roots. Again, I wish I had bought the smaller grade bark. Also from WinGarden, even though it was more expensive, I could not resist this tiny Bulbophyllum. I really love Bulbophyllums. I would keep dozens of them if they weren't so hard to keep alive. But having two giant bowls with larger plants, I really wanted to focus on the smaller species. This was one of those cases where I got an expensive plant because I had never seen it for sale before, only to get home and find it for sale at vendors I usually order from. But you know, no regrets, I'm really glad to have it now. This one also has something growing here, but I can't really tell yet if it's a new growth or a flower spike. They had one that was flowering, so this is definitely flowering size, and look how tiny it is. I couldn't find a decorative container that would fit to DIY a self-watering setup, so I had to use this pot, even though it's still a bit big for this adorably tiny miniature. At the show we also went to other stalls like Ecuagenera and Ecuador Orquideas, and they had some amazing plants that were so tempting, but they were both more on the expensive side and species I had never even heard of. So I decided to be smart and not impulse buy something I'll kill in 6 months. But then, at the Pantropica stall, I just fell in love with this weird and amazing looking Bulbophyllum. And I just now realized this order was really heavy on the Bulbophyllums. Right now the plant just looks like a weird grayish brownish cluster of pebbles. It's the weirdest, most amazing thing. And the flowers are weird and grayish too. I really hope I can manage to grow it and flower it. I was told by the sellers to water it consistently, but a lot of online sources mention to reduce water drastically when it looks like this, because it's pretty much dormant. I also don't see anyone growing these in pots, which means I'll either be a pioneer or I'll have to have another mount to deal with. I was planning on leaving it alone for now, but I didn't like the way the metal tie was digging into the bulb, and turns out it's not even close to attached. Weirdly, it had a flattened and dried out clump of old pseudobulbs underneath. Since I already have the plant off the mount, I decided to try and add some sphagnum to this mount. I don't really have the materials to make a new mount here, and I think this could look kinda cute. It's only now that I'm realizing the amount of things I got rid of during the move. It's the downside of downsizing, I guess. The mount turned out really nice. I now regret not keeping all the others like this that I threw away. That and fishing line, because I'm having to tie this with some sewing thread. And finally, just so we have something a bit more easy and familiar, I couldn't resist from Pantropica this mini Cattleya. It's supposedly the smallest yellow Cattleya hybrid in existence, and they had some in bloom and they were really gorgeous and dainty. I see 2 buds peeking there, so I think we'll be seeing this one bloom soon as well. I have a lot of mini Cattleyas, but they are mostly Rupiculus, so having a mini hybrid seems like a fun addition to the collection. This one was made using a lot of Sophronites to keep the flowers small, so I'm not sure if it will be very tolerant of heat. Although every source online claims it's heat tolerant because of the Cattlianthe parent. Either way, unlike the other purchases we made today, with this one I know what to do in terms of repotting. Just keep it in bark like all the other Cattleyas we own. And that was our haul from the show. I'm so excited to experiment with so many new types of orchids, and hopefully you enjoyed seeing them too. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We also have the Super Thanks option if you want to support the channel monetarily, and you can come back next week for another video. Goodbye.